What happens when one of America's most loved rock legends walks onto a daytime talk show expecting an easy and friendly talk about his music career, only to find himself in the middle of one of the most intense on-air clashes of his life? Bruce Springsteen, the man behind Born to Run, Born in the USA, and decades of songs about the American working class, sat down on The View for what was meant to be a fun, relaxed conversation about his new album and upcoming tour. But instead, the moment quickly turned into a fiery debate that left the audience in shock, the hosts struggling to control the situation, and social media exploding within minutes. Before we get into what was actually said and how it all got so heated, make sure you subscribe to this channel and drop a comment about what you think of celebrity interviews when they take a sharp turn. Do you think talk show hosts sometimes go too far, or is asking tough questions just part of their job? Now, let's look at exactly how things went down on that stage. Bruce Springsteen walked out to loud cheers, smiling humbly and waving at the crowd. The energy in the studio was electric. This was the boss, after all, a living icon whose songs have meant something to millions of fans. Joy Behar opened the segment warmly, telling him how excited they all were to have him there. The other co-hosts added their praise too, talking about how much his music had touched their lives, how his concerts were unforgettable, and how he represented something real in a world full of manufactured pop stars. But then, just as it seemed like the interview was going to stay lighthearted, Joy changed her tone. She leaned forward, her smile fading into a more serious look, and said, "You know, Bruce, I have to ask you something that I think a lot of people wonder about. Your music has always been about the working man, about people who struggle to get by, the forgotten folks. You've built your whole image around being the voice of everyday Americans. But here's the thing I don't get. You're worth hundreds of millions of dollars. You live in a massive estate. You haven't had to worry about bills in decades. So how do you square that with the image you've sold all these years? Aren't you just another rich entertainer now, singing about struggles you no longer face?" The entire studio went quiet. You could feel the air change instantly. The other co-hosts looked at each other, clearly surprised that Joy had gone there so fast. Bruce sat calmly, nodding slowly like he had heard this type of question before. After a short pause, he replied, "Well, Joy, I appreciate the question. I really do," he began. "But I think there's a misunderstanding of what my music has always been about. I've never said that I was still struggling financially. I've been incredibly lucky, and I've never tried to hide that. What I've always tried to do, though, is tell the stories of people whose voices don't often get heard. Just because I don't live paycheck to paycheck anymore doesn't mean I've forgotten where I came from or the people I grew up with. My job as an artist is to shed light on real experiences, not only my own." Joy wasn't happy with that answer. She shook her head and jumped back in before he could say more. "But Bruce, come on," she said, her voice getting louder. "You're telling those stories now from a place of extreme privilege. You fly on private jets. You play massive stadiums. You charge hundreds for tickets. How can you claim to still be connected to the working class? Isn't that just an act? You're selling an image of being authentic while living a life totally disconnected from the people you claim to represent." Bruce's jaw tightened. You could see he was trying to stay calm but getting irritated. He leaned forward and said, "Joy, with all due respect, you're mixing two different things. Yes, I've been successful. Yes, I've made money from my music. But that doesn't erase the truth or sincerity behind what I write. I didn't grow up rich. I grew up in a small New Jersey town where my dad worked in factories and we struggled to get by. Those experiences shaped me. They're part of who I am. And just because I've done well now doesn't mean I've abandoned those roots," Joy fired back. "But are you really talking about them, Bruce? Or are you profiting off them? There's a difference. You've made a fortune turning the struggles of the working class into 3-minute songs and selling them to millions. That's capitalism, not activism. That's business, not being a voice for the voiceless." The audience reacted. Some nodded in agreement, some frowned, and a few booed quietly. Bruce sat back for a second, staring at her. Then he replied, "You know what, Joy? What you're really asking me is whether I have the right to talk about these things because I'm not poor anymore. And that's a dangerous idea. If we follow that logic, then no one who ever achieves success can advocate for those still struggling. No one who makes it out can ever look back and say, this system is broken. That's ridiculous. Joy didn't back down. I'm not saying you can't advocate for people, she said sharply. I'm saying your advocacy sounds empty when you're benefiting from the same system you criticize. You sing about inequality while you're in the top 1%. You sing about hard times while making millions. Isn't that hypocritical? Bruce's voice grew firmer. Because, Joy, I use my platform to talk about issues that would otherwise be ignored. I'm not sitting on my money staying silent. I donate, I speak out, I support causes that help. Yes, I've been lucky enough to make a living doing what I love, but that doesn't mean I've stopped caring. You're basically saying that successful people should shut up about injustice. I completely reject that. The other co-host started to jump in, trying to calm things down. One tried to make a light-hearted comment about how passionate they both were, but Joy waved her off and kept going. Bruce, I'm not attacking you personally, she said. I'm just trying to understand. You can't have it both ways. You can't be the everyman and the millionaire at the same time. Bruce leaned forward, his voice cutting through the noise. Actually, Joy, I can. Because being the everyman isn't about money. It's about values. It's about remembering where you came from and using whatever platform you have to help those who don't have one. And I've spent my whole career doing that. So if you want to question me, fine. But don't question my commitment to the people I sing about. The tension was sky high now. The audience didn't know whether to clap or stay quiet. Joy looked a little taken aback, but then said, well, I guess we'll have to agree to disagree. But Bruce wasn't ready to move on. No, Joy, he said firmly. We can't just agree to disagree because this is exactly what's wrong with how people discuss these issues today. You'd rather pick apart someone trying to help than talk about the real problems. You'd rather focus on supposed hypocrisy than on the work being done. And that's why nothing ever changes. Joy's eyes widened. Excuse me? Are you saying I'm the problem? I'm asking valid questions, Bruce. The same ones many people ask about famous folks who profit from social causes. You don't get to attack me just because you don't like being Joy shook her head. They see themselves in your songs because you've sold them a dream, Bruce. You haven't lived that life for decades. The room buzzed. Some clapped for Joy, others groaned. Bruce sighed and said, Joy, I don't know what you're trying to prove. My music connects with people because they feel seen. That's real. You can call it what you want, but that connection matters. Joy leaned forward again. You're part of the elite now, Bruce. You can wear jeans and play guitar, but at the end of the day, you're one of them. Bruce's voice rose again. I'm not against success, Joy. I'm against greed and indifference. I've never hated success. I've hated injustice. If you can't see the difference, then I don't know what else to say. Another co-host spoke carefully. Bruce, do you ever worry that your message gets lost because of how people see your wealth? Bruce nodded. Of course. Any artist worries about being misunderstood, but I can only be honest. I can't control what people think, only what I do. I've always tried to stay true to my values. Joy interrupted again. But your words and actions don't match, Bruce. You talk about the working man, but you live a life totally apart from theirs. Bruce turned to her sharply. Joy, consistency isn't about living poor to prove something. It's about holding on to your values no matter what. I've done that my whole life. My money's changed. My beliefs haven't. If that's not enough for you, that's your issue, not mine. Joy stood up too. It's not just my issue, Bruce. It's what a lot of people feel. They're tired of being lectured by millionaires about struggles they don't face anymore. Bruce threw up his hands. There it is again. That tired idea that rich people shouldn't care. That's lazy, Joy. It's a distraction. You're doing exactly what powerful people want, fighting over who has the right to speak instead of fighting the real problems. Joy's voice rose. Don't talk down to me, Bruce. I have every right to question your authenticity. And I have every right to defend myself, Bruce shot back. You're not asking fair questions. You're just making assumptions about me. That's not honest journalism. That's bias. The other hosts looked uneasy. One tried to bring balance. Maybe you're both coming from good intentions. Bruce from telling stories and Joy from questioning accountability. There's room for both. But neither seemed ready to let it go. The studio air was thick with tension, the crowd hanging on every word as two strong personalities refused to back down.